Okay, in the second part of the essay on the origin of the work of art, Heidegger's interested in, well, the title of it is The Work and Truth. And he's interested in two things. Well, the truth, and how the truth, as aletheia, as unconcealment, is itself unconcealed in the artwork. And that's important. And think about this, too. Remember what we were talking about in the last video. Truth comes out in the conflictual union between earth and world, which is the conflictual union between revealing and concealing. And that tension between them is being qua the nothing qua difference. Okay? That's a lot to keep in mind, but I'll keep repeating it over and over again, and it'll start to make more sense by the time we get to part 3. So he's interested in two things, I was saying. He's interested in truth and how truth is illuminated in the artwork, and two, the worlding of a world, that is, the founding of a world. So we talked about artworks as disclosing a world, and we talked about artworks, great artworks, as worlding a world or creating a world. That is, creating an open relational context of meaning, okay? Things like the Bible, sacred scriptures, temples and churches. They actually create a world. What does that mean that they create a world? They open up existential possibilities. They create literally a new world, right? So you think about the death and resurrection of Christ in the New Testament. This is a completely earth-shattering, we would use that term, or world-forming event. It's a complete paradigm shift in possibilities. Okay, that's what he means by the founding of a world, and that's what he's interested in this second part here. And he uses a Greek temple as an example, and a statue of the god in the temple. And so, just a couple things here. We see in this part of the essay where he's really interested in religion, really, or the sacred, and how the sacred and God in particular, and the holy, or the human being's experience of the holy through the beautiful, how that opens up existential possibilities, okay? So there's two parts. He's interested in how truth happens in an artwork, and remember, truth is the illumination of beings in their meaning, okay? But he's interested in how the illumination of beings in their meaning or in their being is itself illuminated. So he's talking about a reflexive process of the illumination of illumination. That's what goes on in the artwork. We're getting an illumination. We're seeing how possibilities open up, and we're being illuminated on that too. So there's a philosophical point and phenomenological point going on here too. And secondly, we're seeing how a world is founded and what role God or religion or the sacred has to do with that, okay? There's something interesting here that would bridge the gap between these two things about the truth and God and religion. If you remember in the New Testament, Christ says before Pontius Pilate, Pilate says to Jesus, Jesus says, I've come for this purpose to testify to the truth. All who accept the truth hear my voice. And Pilate says very famously, quid est veritas? What is the truth? And of course, the irony is he's standing before the truth, because Jesus says in an earlier chapter in John's Gospel, I am the truth. I am the way, the truth, and the life, right? But when Jesus says I am the truth, he doesn't mean I am the correct correspondence of an idea to reality, right? He doesn't mean the metaphysical definition of truth. And it's interesting in John's Gospel, if you read the prologue of John's Gospel, it's a nice metaphor here. I don't know why Heidegger didn't use this. He talks about Christ as the point of the incarnation is... and we beheld his glory, the glory of the only Son. And it's about the glory, or it's about the coming of Jesus and all the different signs he does. There's 7 signs in the Gospel of John. Lazarus raising is the last one that gets him killed. The wedding of Cana is the first one. The man born blind, this was in the liturgy in the Sundays coming before. The Samaritan woman, etc. Samaritan woman's not a sign, but the multiplication of the loaves is, etc. And the healing of the official son. And before I'm going on and on, this has nothing to do with it. The point is interesting, though. You want to think of what Heidegger's doing and how he's understanding an artwork here as sacramental. And it's almost like the way Christ understands himself, or the way the Gospel of John portrays Christ in the Gospel. Namely, he does these things called signs. We can call them sacraments. Now, remember, a sacrament is an efficacious sign, or an outward sign instituted by Christ. In John's Gospel, it says at the wedding at Cana, for example, he does the sign that says, this was the first of Jesus' signs, the sema, that he did to reveal his glory. So the point of the signs are not to heal people, or they're not miracles. They're meant to show forth glory, right? They're meant to shine. Interestingly, the word in Greek for glory is doxa, and the word means both glory and opinion, and it comes from the word to shine, right? And this is what Heidegger's getting at, that somehow, what the Gospel of John is getting at, that in these signs, the glory of God is revealed. And then, of course, the ultimate sign is the crucifixion, where the ultimate glory of God is revealed, like before Jesus dies. Right when Judas, is interesting, in the Gospel of John, chapter 13, when Judas, he gives the morsel of bread to Judas, and he says, what you're going to do quickly, and Judas goes out to betray him. Christ says, now is the Son of Man glorified, right? And it's all about preparing for the glory. The point is, Heidegger's thinking of that in the same way, that these artworks, great works of art, actually reveal something what we could call glory. They're signs, they're sacramental things that make present a reality that's beyond or transcendent. But of course, he's not thinking in metaphysical terms as in another world. He's talking about this experience we experience in the artwork. Yes, it's the beautiful, but there's some sense of the sacred that we encounter in these things. They're like a great work of art is like a sacrament. Something becomes present in there. And here's the problem. With the eclipse of God, with the reduction of the meaning of being to one meaning in the nihilism of modern science and technology, there is no space any longer for the sacred, for the glory of God, or whatever you want to call it, to appear. Okay? So you can think of that as a nice analogy there. And he talks about this on page 166, and he talks about how you can just tell that this is a symptom of the death of God, really, the nihilism of the reduction of the meaning of being to one meaning. He says, he talks about all these artworks, and he laments they're being put in museums as works they are, torn out of their own native sphere. Right? He's saying they're taken out of a world. This is in the middle of the page on 166. However high their quality and powerful impression, however good their state of preservation, however certain their interpretation, placing them in a collection has withdrawn them from their own world. Okay? So he's saying that artworks originally were not these things that you painted a picture and you put it in a museum. You didn't have a temple to go look at. These were things that drew together as logoi, as logos, as gathering together the many into one. They gathered people together and provided the meaning of things. Okay? That's what he's saying. Great artworks were, and that's what he's saying the Greek temple functioned as in its originary sphere, namely as a temple in Greece, right? It was the center of the city. It was where people took they were guided and they got their ultimate meaning from. Okay,